I'm Narjeet. I'm the co-founder of Lean Apps, and I'm based out of Berlin in Germany. I'm here with my co-founder Gaurav, who is in Delhi, India. So I wanted to start this session with telling our story. And let me just quickly also share the screen, and so you can see the Miro board. All right. Can you see the Miro board?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so Gaurav and I are brothers too, if you can't tell by the picture. In 2014, we came together and decided to build our product. So we were quite hyped up after our corporate jobs. We kind of came out and thought about building a product. In the same year, we launched that in the market, and we were expecting to get super rich after the launch, naive entrepreneurs. But for the first next 1 year, we were actually really struggling, and we kept pushing the product to our customers with our different marketing tactics. But only after spending approximately 100,000 euros of our own money, we realized that we have built a product that customer doesn't really want. They don't really care for that. So next step, we decided to go to Himalaya. Actually, we didn't. I'm just joking. We did some retrospective offsite. We learned that we could have learned the same lesson, probably in less than 1,000 euros, where we spent 100,000, and probably in less than 3 months, where it took us 2 years. And that's what we did for our second idea, which we actually tested in 2 months and killed it before we even touched 5,000 euros. So which was a great learning for us. And that's when we started doing some teaching this kind of stuff to corporate innovation. And we were doing this in 2016. I remember we were at one of the innovation workshops at corporate in Munich, and we discovered a new problem. We found that corporates really don't have any support for their innovation teams to run experimentation and test new business ideas. And because IT usually is busy, sales and marketing are busy with their core business, we did see that there were coaching support from external companies, like Strategizer and Board of Innovation and all these guys who were doing some coaching support and learning support. But there was nothing in the space to really execute ideas and test and execute experiments and bring in data. And that's why we kind of started to, we decided to launch 2 new initiatives, which was like experimentation as a service to really run experiments with the team. And later on, we added this, what we now call throwaway MVPs. And I'll explain this later in the session why we call it throwaway. So we have 2 objectives today. We'll have 2 learning objectives. What we'll look at is, we'll try to answer these 2 questions for you today. How can innovation actually generate insane return on investment? That's one. And how can we de-risk our business idea by rapid testing and experimentation? So what I'll do is I'll start with that, and Gaurav will take over in between. So let me just bring you guys in here. So, all right. So you can see the portfolio thing. So what we have seen now in past, I would say 5 years is that most of the innovation labs or programs which are running in corporate, they fail to deliver any scalable business model. And at the end of the day, like after 2 or 3 years, 4 years, the corporate management realizes that and starts. And we saw a lot of labs closing when COVID actually hit the ground in 2020. So that's kind of an indication. And we saw a couple of problems there, which was happening. Why there were no ROIs coming out of it is most of these reportings or the measurement of innovation was they were reporting vanity metrics in these corporates. And you would have, I think by now, we're halfway through Innovators Conference, so you would have heard the word innovation theater. So most of them were kind of showing off, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're launching new products, but there was no value really delivered to the customer at the end of the day. We also saw that some of these innovation programs didn't have enough ideas to go through the funnel. So they would work with 5 to 10 ideas a year. And we all know the probability of success within small number of ideas is pretty low. And then lastly, we also saw that they don't test ideas. And this is something we saw in 3 dimensions. Most of the time they were making stuff nobody wanted. Other times they would make stuff that is valuable, but it was not profitable. And lastly, we also saw that they made stuff valuable and profitable, but something was not scalable. So these were the 3 different dimensions we saw into while we were looking at innovation programs. And here, if you look at the VC data, you can see the same result here, that most of the innovations or the startups as well in the market, they don't produce any ROI. And at the end of year, if you see this 4 out of 1,000 are produces 50x result. And this is kind of 250 ideas it will take 250 ideas to really create a multi-billion-dollar return from innovation. So just to put that in perspective, let's say if you're exploring only 10 ideas a year, that will take you 25 years to get that kind of a return. So if you're expecting 50x return from the innovation. But we all need this result faster. So what we need to do is kind of put small bets and small investments into testing hundreds of ideas a year at a very fast pace with small investment, as I mentioned, and test them whether they really have a scalable business model or not very early on. And this is the only way to really de-risk your investments and build your portfolio, which will give you an ROI in your innovation. And this is a live example I'll kind of share with you from Bayer, where they did a similar approach. So let me just zoom this in. Yeah, so this is basically explaining the explore and exploit region of the business. So innovation usually sits in this explore zone, and this is an exploit zone. We are kind of increasing and maximizing the return from an existing business. Most of the management consulting practices, McKinsey and all these people are actually living in this space, and they're quite good at that. They know how to scale a business model once it has a product market fit. But most of the things which we are doing at innovation is quite different. It's a different skill set. It's more exploration. You're trying to find your path. You're testing a lot of stuff. Eventually, you test hundreds of things, and then probably 1 or 2 of them will, start reaching onto this path. And this is what Bayer did, and this is kind of a numbers which they have. Maybe I can show you. I like this picture a little better from Bayer presentations. So this is where what they did was they kind of picked up collected ideas first. So they got 400 ideas from different business units. Then they tested 75 of these ideas, and out of that they built around 25 to 29 ideas. And eventually 17 of them went into the exploit side of things from Explore. And this kind of happened over the period of 4 to 5 years. And this gave them a return of approximately €1 billion from innovation. And now, just to confirm the theory which you saw here on, from the VC data, it's kind of a similar story. So this was 2017, where they tested a few of the ideas with very, you can say there was no hit per se, there were small returns from these little ideas. Then in the next year, they kind of got one big hit from that year, some small hits here and there. And then eventually in 2019 and 2020, they got a couple of big hits after practicing innovation for a period of time. And if you see, the 60% of your 1 billion is coming from 3 ideas only. It kind of proves the point from the VC data we have up there. So the result of implementing this at Bayer is this kind of a big infographic we created now to really whatever we were practicing at Bayer, how it should all work together. So the concept is to bring, you would have heard a lot of lean startup, design thinking, what should we be using, what is growth hacking, how agile comes into picture. So we kind of sorted this out by practicing this at Bayer and doing these innovations. And this is what it comes down to now. So initially what they did was they collected ideas. They did some workshops around that to generate ideas which are kind of innovation, kind of aligned to the strategy. So this is one of the important pieces we learned is there were a few ideas which actually were not aligned to the strategy. They did reach here, but then down the line they were killed because it was just not fitting the strategy. So this is one of the important learnings, that your ideas should be aligned to the strategy at this stage. Then what they did was they selected a few of these ideas. As I mentioned, 75 of these ideas were selected for testing. And here, the selection was more if it fits the strategy and some kind of a gut feel that, okay, this makes sense, then this was moved for testing. And then they spent a small amount of money on the testing through experimentation to see whether this has a scalable business model, is the problem worth solving for the customer. This usually run for 12 weeks, and then they decide to kill the ideas. So approximately like each year, we would kill approximately 70 to 80% ideas will be killed at this stage. And then whatever survives the funnel, we used to move them to step 3 and step 4. And this is where we would run some kind of a design sprint workshops to define what could be our first MVP, go deep dive into the solution, and kind of say what is the first version we want to bring to the market. And then we'll build the product. So this is where you're building the product. And here, why we call it throwaway MVPs, this is something we added this word last year to bring everybody in the right mindset, that whatever you're building at this stage is meant to learn, not to scale. So this is what these are the learnings we had, that we keep a throwaway mindset because we don't want to scale beyond 40, 50 users initially. And what we're trying to do is not just build, we're trying to go through growth funnel as well during this phase, where with a small set of users, you're trying to say, can we acquire users? How are we going to acquire these users? Can we convert them to active users? And can we further convert them to paying users? So this is kind of you're going through the whole funnel. This way you're able to learn what channels are working for you. What is the aha moment for the user on the product? Why would they return and stay active on the product and keep using it? And when they will be ready to pay? And how much will they be ready to pay? All those questions are answered in this stage. And this is kind of a finishing point of explore phase. And that's when we started handing over back to the exploit, where we are kind of now scaling up the business ideas. And so you can look at this, don't worry about it. I'll send you the slides, the investments, what each stage needs, and what is the approximate timeline for each of these stages. What tools are we using in these stages are also mentioned here. All right. So what we want to do now is, as a second part of the workshop, we want to deep dive into this second part. So how can we test new business ideas at speed through rapid experimentation? And this is where I will hand it over to Gaurav to start running that.
Yeah, thanks, Narjeet. I think it was great. So I'll quickly walk you through this whole. So we picked up one of our favorite projects in the healthcare, and I think now it's becoming very important after COVID has hit the world, because I think when I got to know this problem that one of the teams was trying to solve, it was a very new thing for me. But I think now everybody in the world knows what happens after you have COVID, you go into a acute situation. So starting with Narjeet, can you summon to the canvas, please? So what people usually say and what they do is very different. So I think with my conversations with different leaders or innovation leads, what I realize is that most of the products, and I think Narjeet also mentioned that our product that we built was based on our opinion. Okay, I know it's amazing. We went to people, I think we asked wrong questions, and I think nobody said, yeah, it's a bad idea, but it was all opinion based. And I think what we realized over a period of time is that opinion doesn't help you validate your idea. What you need to do is, yes, you will still go and have opinions, but what is that one thing that you need to capture is the user behavior, the actual behavior, how they act, how they behave. And usually what we have seen, and that's also like based on the data, that what in different experiments, that when we go and run opinion-based experiments and we actually run behavior-based experiments, the data points are very, very different. So in this example, we worked with a team of doctors at Bayer. So they're already working on a drug for curing ARDS. So what is ARDS? It's acute respiratory disorder syndrome. So when you in fact, in COVID, a lot of the patients who are dying in ICU, that's the last stages where they get ARDS, they are put on a ventilator and eventually they die. Unfortunately, there's no cure for this today in the world. And so while working on this drug, the drug is still in the clinical, I think it's not come to clinical trial, but it's still in the phase where they're building it. So they came with this idea of solving the problem for ICU physicians, where they can help them diagnose this ARDS very early at the stage when the patient is in the ICU. And I think that's where we started initially defining. So what we start is with designing the idea. So what's the idea? So you're not going, you define it in one sentence. So here we call it, so there were different names. They call it ICU Angel, they call it ARDS Diagnoser, but as a team they decided this as a name. Second, if you see it's we believe hypothesis, this is something which is again opinion based. If you read this, what they say is, okay, we believe that the physicians will help physician diagnose through our platform 2x faster, and they will love using our platform. But is it so? And from there, this hypothesis, what we do is we convert that into a testable hypothesis. Now, what we call it is XYZ hypothesis. So what is X? X is the percentage of your target market. That what's your target market? We'll go through this in the other canvas that we'll discuss. But that X percentage of your Y target market, and what's the behavior action that they will take. So if you read, if I think once we share the Miro board, you can go through it. But this hypothesis and the one that we believe hypothesis, yeah, so that is opinion based. This is more behavior based. So what do you want to actually do is capture the behavior of the customer segment, and that's where once this is defined, I think what the next stage what we get into is defining the problem. So maybe can you go to the problem canvas? Yeah. So we came with this canvas after putting a lot of effort and a lot of frustration, because a lot of these canvases, again, I'm not against business canvas model. I think that's where we also got evolved, but they don't deep dive into the problem. And that's where we created this, that, oh, you just define a problem. You don't know why the problem is, who has a problem. So what you do is you start defining the problem. You start putting the customer segment, who has the problem, what's the root cause, defining those 5 whys, what are the alternatives, because today how the problem is still exists, there will be some way that they're solving the problem. So you define all the ways, the way they work and solve the problem, or they solve the problem today. What are the consequences? Like if the problem is not solved, what is the impact on the physicians or on the end customer? And when it's life and death situation, I think this consequence becomes very important. What is the impact in numbers? I think that's where the team starts putting the actual numbers. So I think here in this case, what we wanted to capture is what's the mortality rate, how many people we're gonna save, how many die because of this ARDS situation. And we also captured about the cost, like what's the cost of keeping a patient in the ICU, which is very high, it's around 10,000 euros. And when you are in ARDS situation, average time that you spend in ICU is 15 days. So you can imagine the amount of cost that it comes for the insurance companies or the payers. How will the future look like? That if the problem is solved, what will be what will be the positive impact? And that actually helps you create your value proposition, in defining it. Once you have defined and deep dive into the problem, what you go is into defining your customer segment. Narjeet, can you go to the B2B canvas? Right. So this is where, so in this case, this was a B2B customer segment. So we had some questions, or again, this is assumption. All these was assumption based. So we wanted to capture the B2B data, who are the decision makers, what their job title is, what their department is, what industry we are targeting, what locations we'll initially test our idea with, and defining your vendor selection process, their top challenges, their goals. I think one thing we knew is okay, we'll be dealing with doctors, which are a bit conservative when it comes to using tech. So we decided that we'll not focus on all the doctors, but we want to focus only people while we do the interviews who are innovators or who are early adapters to the technology. So once we define the customer segment, what we do is we do the assumption mapping, so I think this is familiar with everyone, I'm sure. So desirability, viability, and feasibility. I'll not get into the details, but desirability usually captures what are the problem in customer segment. So whatever we brought in these canvases, we bring it here. Viability is focused on the business model, the market size, revenue, the competition. So I think since in this case, it was a very niche market, so we could very easily, make out, okay, who is a target customer segment. So we are only focusing on ICU physicians. So the biggest unknown in while we are putting the viability is that will the hospital be ready to pay, for this tool that we're going to build to help them diagnose the patient, or we also discovered that there could be insurance companies, because if you see the cost, I was mentioning in my in the problem canvas that it's 10,000 per day. So it's a huge cost for the insurance company. So that also came out of the discovery that, yeah, this could be another potential target customer. Particularly with the medical products on the feasibility side, most of the unknowns that were there on the data security regulation. Will the hospital allow us to take the data on the cloud? How will we run the clinical trials? Because trials takes another 1 or 2 years to reach to your production go live product, or when you go live, right? And so I think once these challenges were put in, what we also did is we divided that into what we had the evidence and things for which we didn't have the evidence. So this really helped the team to decide. And this evidence, again, as I said, they're not opinion based. Even if they were more behavior based, because the doctors that we were working have been in this. So in fact, one of the person in the team was himself ICU physician. So that really helped us define these assumptions. So once these assumptions are defined, what you do is you want to prioritize your assumption. So what we filtered out the most critical assumptions which had no evidence, and this was what our focus area was. That what when we go and create experiments, we'll only focus on the most critical assumptions where there is no evidence. So for this particular idea, we ran around 4 or 5 experiments. So if you take it to the experiment design, so in the experiments design, what we do is we have different steps. So first is we bring the most riskiest assumption. That the first one, you define, okay, what experiment you're going to run to test this assumption. What will be a success criteria? Now, success criteria is defined in terms of numbers. What's the skin in the game? Skin in the game is, okay, what's there for the customer? What's there for the end user? Like, what is he willing to give to you in view of what the problem that you're solving for them, or the idea that the product that you're building for them. And you time box this experiment. You define, okay, for what duration I'm going to run the experiment. So we ran discovery and problem interviews, which are more opinion based, very weak evidence, but so with the ICU physician. But the results were encouraging. With the interviews that we got, we saw that 10 out of 20 physicians had the similar problem. They had the similar frustration. In fact, we also went to insurance companies. We were not able to acquire a lot of insurance companies in the initial phase, but 2 of the 3 companies said yes, that the cost of ICU is very high. But they were still opinion based. As I said, the evidence was low, and we wanted to do more experiments where we can capture the actual behavior of the user. So we built a landing page, and what we did is we went on LinkedIn. We acquired a couple of physicians from there. We in fact ran. So the landing page also had something for insurance companies. So we did this experiment for I think 2-3 weeks, if I remember, and 30 physicians actually filled their email address. Some of them even dropped their numbers. That and the focus was purely on the value proposition and the problem that we're solving. So we didn't talk about the solution in this. In fact, after this data that we captured, we went and built a prototype for the user testing. In fact, we took the prototype to one of the insurance companies. Couple of people that filled their email address, gave the landing, and we did a one-on-one session with them. In fact, one of the hospital was ready one of the hospital and one of the insurance companies. It was a very good finding. Though we never planned this in the experiment, that can we discuss, if we give you an LOI, how fast you can build a solution for us? So I think this evidence was really good for us to decide that should we go and invest in building the product. If we go down to the evidence meter. Okay. So how do you really define? How do you decide that as a team should we kill the idea? Should we invest in the idea further, or do we need to run more experiments? So what we have done is we have this evidence meter. This is coming from Alberto Savio from the prototyping thing. So we have tried to use it in our experiment framework, where you define the idea based on very unlikely to highly likely. So when you're defining your experiments and you realize that your actual results are more than what you expected, 2x more than, or if it's between X and 2x, you say the idea is very likely or unlikely, very highly likely or likely to win. But if you get the exact results what you thought of, then it's 50-50. But if it's below that, what you see is it's unlikely or very unlikely. Now, in one of the examples, if you see where you are, so how do you kill or pivot? Now, in this case, if you see 6 experiments, like in total, there are 8 experiments. If you see out of 8, 6 experiments tell you that your idea is very unlikely to succeed. So as a team, then you can decide that with this 6 experiments, you may also go with more experiments, but with these multiple experiments, I think you actually, know the wave where it's going. So the wave says that, okay, it's very unlikely. So you decide and kill the idea. In the second example, if you see, again, out of the 8 experiments, now the 5 experiments, in fact, 7 experiments is taking the wave towards success, that whatever data we have captured, and that's a behavioral data, as I mentioned, right? The behavioral data is saying that, yes, this idea is likely to succeed. So you can go further and start building your MVP. Again, that doesn't mean that idea will really succeed, because when you go to the next stage where you build the MVPs, there are other challenges when it comes to user acquisition, activation, retention. There are a lot of things that so there are a lot of unknowns when you're doing idea, but at least the experiment, the initial data says that, yeah, this idea is likely to succeed. In this, the last one, so this is like, what do you call it? It's a draw. So some experiments say that your idea is very likely to succeed. Some of these, they are unlikely to succeed. So I think in this stage, what we usually do is we tell the teams to run more experiments so that you can decide if the idea can go to stage 1 and stage 2, which is either you pivot, kill the idea, or you invest further. Perfect. So I think that's all from my side. Thank you.
One good part on this is that the decisions on the management side to what to invest in becomes very objective. And we are kind of trying to make it a little bit even further objective right now. So I'll probably share that. Hopefully it shows up. Let's see. Wait a minute. I'll try to just move things around here. Somehow I'm unable to do that. Yeah, of course. Try to bring this guy here. Can you see the Excel sheet?
Yes.
Yes. So what we're doing is we're actually using this formula, which is like a probability of success given data. It's called Bayes formula, which is kind of used in machine learning and all these kind of different technologies, but how they do a prediction. So we're using a similar formula to do this kind of a calculation where we're saying that if you put a hypothesis number, let's say your first experiment, your hypothesis you're expecting is 20%. And then every idea, the base value is that you have only 10% probability of success. So what you want to do is when you run your first experiment, it gives you 20%, which is what you're expecting. It calculates and pushes your likelihood of success to 30%. But if it's less than that, so it pushes you, it keeps you at 10%. And then when you start running more and more experiments, if you see these are multiple experiments, this graph will keep going up and down, and eventually after 7 or 8 experiments, that's what we have seen. It starts giving you a converged value of probability of success of your idea, and this gives you a very concrete number at the end of the day to decide on your investment and calculating your probability of success of an idea. And any false positive, false negatives are also kind of covered in this, because as you can see, you will move up and down in the graph, and eventually you will end up, you need to have a pattern. You need to have a series of positive signals to get to the value around 60, 70, 80% to really make that decision. So this is what we are kind of trying to create and generate. What you see in the Miro board currently is a human element to it, where how you're marking these values are kind of defined by the team, like whether they want to mark it. This kind of makes it it takes the human element out of it, and it becomes very, very objective to take the decisions on your side. So just quickly, let me just quickly run into this for you. We have approximately, what we do is in the experimentation space, we picked up 25 experiments for our experiments menu, which we offer to corporate. And what we did is we divided these experiments into problem space. So doing your problem validation experiments, your solution experiments, and your viability experiments. Somehow it's not loading. Wait a second. I hope it shows up. It shows up. So I'm just going to take an example here. For example, in B2B scenario, it is what we have heard very often is it's very hard to recruit users and get in touch with the users in B2B area. But this was a common problem which a lot of B2B ideas actually started telling us. So this is what we created a simple experiments to recruit users for interviews. And this is a simple one where We connect with few people through automated campaigns on LinkedIn. We try to invite 5 or 10 of them for an interview. And then we try to go through our script of our interview to validate our problem statements. And this is a complete menu which you can with 25 experiments with similar stuff. So how we run the experiment, there is an example of the experiment. Then you also have like what exactly are you measuring in this experiment, and what is the skin in the game you're going to get from the customers, whether is it quantitative or qualitative feedback you're getting, and what is the speed of the experiment, and the evidence strength. So what is the strength of the evidence? So when I say evidence strength, you can imagine a survey is very low evidence strength, but if somebody is actually paying you money or pre-ordering your product, that's a very high evidence. So this is what evidence strength means here. What I'll do is probably to go through, I'll take an example from a viability space, like how we really use this. Let me pick up LinkedIn sales pitch. So this is what, let's say you have your prototype, you have your landing pages. Now you want to see, are people willing to put money on the table for our idea? So you're not building anything, you're just pretending that it already exists. You have all the marketing assets around that. So what we'll do is we'll select the right candidate from job profile, geography, all the different filter options which are available on LinkedIn, and we'll shortlist, let's say 100 people there. Then we'll create a copy of a sales pitch with some discounts offered there and all that. And then what we'll allow them to do is they can, from the sales page, go to a landing page where we'll explain the whole proposition. We'll also put videos and all those different things from what you can create without writing a code. And we'll ask them, let's say, for booking a demo with us for 60 minutes or sign up for a trial version. That will be the call to action. That's basically the sales. In the sales pitch, you'll have that link. People will go to the landing page and then try to book a demo. And that's what we're going to measure, that how many people click the link, how many ended up on the landing page, how many tried to order it or book a demo or sign up for a trial version. So yeah, I mean, as I said, there are multiple experiments here. Like we'll push these kind of value proposition on online communities. We'll do some ads, email marketing. We'll do letter of intent, marketing videos. Digital ads is here. Landing page experiments with fake checkouts are there. So what I'll do is I'll also take an example of a B2B scenario and show you from the real world, which we did. So this is again something similar, which we did with Bayer. It was a book or demo call experiment. So what the idea was here is that clinicians, this is the problem, find it hard to take notes during their session with patients, and this whole patient management, record management is very difficult for them. And they identified 3 stakeholders: clinicians, patients, and payers. The first thing they wanted to do was interview them. So they found 49 overall users. So they started with a problem interview and got some positive feedback, which is okay. More, as we said, it's more opinion, so we wanted to go further. So we decided to build a landing page. So this is a landing page we did, and then we also designed a prototype, which is like a click dummy of how the product would function in this case. Then they also created, we also created with the click dummy, we created a demo of the product. So it looked real. That worked. It was so real that you could, in the video, you could see that, okay, it's actually a product working. And when we asked the people to book a demo for 60 minutes, and later on, they also create, like, we push this landing page through the LinkedIn and email campaigns. And then we also created some kind of an animated video to tell a story of, Mark had this problem and then he found this product and his world changed. So that kind of a narrative is there, which again is pushed through YouTube ads as well to see the engagement there. And we got this kind of a result where 15 out of 23, these were like more interview feedback. So clinicians, payers, and patients feedback. Then on the page, we got 70 visitors and 20 to book the 60-minute online demo. And for video, we checked video analytics on YouTube that 130 people viewed it, 40% watched the full video, which shows a good interest into knowing the product, and 70% people watched the video but dropped at the solution part. That is also a good learning. That okay, maybe the problem is there, but the solution might not be that interesting to them. So this was kind of example from B2B. And there is another one which I might share is B2C. This is called an idea around bone broth. And then this is where, to start with an idea, they did a keyword research and saw this kind of a spike in the trend It was back in 2014. So they created a landing page explaining, okay, you can buy this 100% grass-fed bone broth. And then they ran some ads on Bing to get the people on board. People could actually order it, which was, it's like a fake checkout. It will take you to a PayPal checkout and people can pay. So you were actually asking them to pay the money. And after like an hour or so, when they would purchase, there's an automated email that goes back like, hey, I'm a founder of this company and thanks for purchasing it, but we are out of stock. So I will refund it in full and I'll give you a 50% discount when we ship it in a few weeks. This was a kind of a data they collected later on. So they had 7,814 visitors, these many conversions. This was pretty high actually. So this is actually a very growing startup now. It's called Kettle and Fire. It's a quite a growing startup. It's, I think, doing around 5 to 10 million. I'm not exactly sure of the number, but they're doing a 5 to 10 million revenue right now, year by year. So these are some of the examples we wanted to show. I hope this was helpful and gave you some insights into how experimentation and testing these new business ideas can be done by spending a very less amount of money in the beginning and really getting to the core of the business model. And now we are ready for questions.
Thank you. Great presentation. A lot of data you share. So maybe we could start with Alberto. Alberto, can you come to the mic and ask your questions? Because you have a couple of them. Let's see. I don't think Alberto is able to come to the mic. I can ask the question for him. When you were in the Motherboard, you talked about this golden triangle.
Yep.
Where you had the three parts. And the Bermuda Triangle, yes. And he says, okay, it looks like the questions are predefined. And do these checks fit to different types of problems, or do you adapt these based on each project?
No, actually, see, so the questions that we have, the question that we have defined, it usually fits into any idea, because what we are trying to see is problem is fundamental. So problem could be anywhere. I think what we are trying to, the whole purpose of putting this framework is that rather than focusing more on the solution, because if you see in the corporate world or even in startups or innovation, the first thing that you start is with solution. So we want people to spend a lot of time really, understanding what the challenge is, what the problem is, where are the customers really struggling with. I think that's where the questions come in. But yes, I think in fact, I replied to Alberto on the chat that I'll be happy to have his feedback if there's something which you see is missing. But what you've tried to do is predefine the questions. So what we want to know is, so basically it's also come from an approach which we call PCNS. So if you know the problem, you know the consequences. So then I think, and the need, solution is the last step, which you can very easily build. And of course, you need data to prove it in between the layer, which we call experiment. But these questions are mostly like, what you try to do is, from our learning from different canvases and places, we wanted people to focus on the problem space, and that's why we try to keep it predefined. But considering the ideas that we have worked in so far, B2C, B2B, healthcare, retail, different industries, so this fits mostly everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like to connect. These are questions. So what we did was we actually expanded business model canvas, very simply speaking.
Yeah.
The problem with business model canvas was that it asked that one question, but it was not enough to provoke the thought. So we kind of put those questions like, think about this, think about that, think about this. So that's how it became like a series of questions which we can ask to just provoke the thought process of people while they're building up these canvases.
Yeah, very good. Renata, can you come to the mic?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay.
Yes. My question is, like, this approach really works with startups and new concepts. But when it comes to corporates, let's say, even putting a landing page online, it's with something not working or that won't be available, it's quite a challenge. And it's even to do that, you have to go through a lot of internal departments. So how do you, if you have a solution, how do you do this?
Right. So there are two things here. What we actually did at Bayer, which is one of the most regulated industry, because healthcare and pharma is one of the most regulated. There are legal compliance challenges. We at least spent 6 to 8 months with legal and compliance to create a framework initially, like it was in initial years, where we said that, okay, these are the different tools, these are different ways we are going to test. So we kind of brought them into our, our kind of a buy-in mode. What they helped later on with us is like we needed these terms of use, privacy policies, how they're using this and all those kind of different things to cover us legally. So we created a framework around that. Okay, if you use tool number, Google Analytics and Hotjar on landing page, then this should be the privacy policy. If you're using only Google Analytics, just use this. If you're using some kind of a chatbot, you use this. So we created a complete framework and they took their buy-in, which really helped us because we didn't have to go back and forth to them for the next 4 or 5 years to create a landing page or to create any other stuff which we were doing. That's one. So creating that upfront buy-in from them and creating that kind of a framework really helped us to speed up things. Second thing we also kind of did was we started testing off-brand. So exactly. We don't need to say that we are Bayer. We are a startup from Berlin trying to solve a problem, or a startup in India or in China or wherever that is. We are trying to solve a problem. There's no link to the main brand there. In this case, there is a new logo, new name, new URL. You're kind of doing this completely off-brand, and you test it and then you move forward with that. These are the two tactics we used to not hurt the original brand. Let's call it like that.
Yeah. Like the framework part is interesting because we are in conversation with the legal department to avoid having the same conversation for every concept. But then there is the part of certain new concepts are linked to the brand. So there is no way out. And actually, maybe some customer might be willing to sign up because of the brand power. And that is where the tricky part is.
But I would say in this scenario, if an idea can stand without the brand, it is much higher evidence than you have to use a brand to push a product. So a classic example is Google keeps on failing all the time. They have this whole Google graveyard. If you search Google graveyard right now, you'll find tons and tons of ideas which are failing, and they're one of the best brands. We know everybody uses Google, but they're not afraid of showing this as it happens. You're continuously going to fail. But why do they have failure? They are such a big brand. Why do they have so many failed ideas? So in general, brand is not going to eventually. It can help you push into your scale-up stage, but would it really help you get those questions answered around whether it's really a scalable business model? I'm not very sure about that, I would say. So it's better to test without the brand than with the brand.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Hayden Smith, can you come to the mic to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. My question was around building evidence in a difficult B2B environment. So it's sort of building on the last question a little bit. I found that the book Testing Business Assumptions from Strategizer is like really good. It gives a lot of broad types of tests to do. But then when we go and try and actually apply those, there's not a lot of guidance offered on how to. And there's hundreds of people that have done thousands of tests around B2B environments that are more complex probably even than the ones I'm trying. So I'm wondering, is there guidance you can provide, or does your company offer this as a service to try and help figure out, or a tool or something like that to help figure out how to apply the right type of test?
Yes, so that's one of the key things we do on the menu. So the menu which I've shown you, which I'll send you later, we actually, most of the people who we work with are B2B, and that's what we're discussing, Gaurav and I as well in our previous listing, that B2B is much higher in our scenario than B2C. And and the idea is, and one of the biggest challenge with B2B is access to the customer. That's what they struggle with. And so this is what we guide on, what are the different hacks to really go and access these customers. going around from your sales. The sales teams and account management teams in your company also try to protect them, but no other team can talk to our customers except until and unless we are in the room or something like that. So I think we try to go around that and try to acquire users from different channels.
And I think one good thing that, in fact, we are more confident on B2B than B2C, if you ask me. Reason is that, in fact, our ideas that we failed in came from B2B. Our business model is all B2B. So whatever experiments we are doing on us, as in when I say our business, our pipelines, our funnel, our experiments, so all are B2B driven. And I think we have really find those hacks when it comes to LinkedIn or Slack, and because all our energy and effort is going there. And whatever learnings we are doing with our failures, it is helping us to improve the whole experimentation for other customers. And I think, in fact, we are proud to say, maybe we're also thinking that why not, come out with a more detailed experimentation focused purely on B2B. And, where I think where most of these innovation consulting companies fail, because the ideas that are taken more B2C, and then you try to fit the B2B. I think you also mentioned that strategizer book. In fact, that's the same challenge with me when I was reading, that it tells you, okay, what experiment you can do, but how you execute it, how you read the data, how you connect the dots. I think that's where the challenge is. And with us, what we are doing is we are taking that as a base. But now we are, in fact, we are in the process of writing our ebook as well, where a landing page will be more detailed, where you can go, how you can create, how we'll connect, other analytics tool, how you will capture the customer data, how will an email get triggered. So I think all these things, when they come as a box, one in the box, and it's very easy for you to pick that and run that experiment. Yeah. So in fact, we are more confident.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Is there somewhere we can go to actually understand the offer that you provide? Do you have a website or something that we can check out?
Yeah, we can send you that. So this will.
We can send you that. Yeah.
Thank you.
One more point to this is one is a B2B idea where it's, but then another thing which we are doing is if you go to B2B2C scenario, that is also quite interesting because there is always an end consumer. So we have also kind of done where when you start to have a conversation with the second B, you actually first test it with the C directly. So you as a company directly go to the C, do the test, collect the data, and that data is then presented back to the second B. And then you will see there is a different conversation when you start to happen in the room when you have that data.
Okay, there are a lot of questions still, but because of the time, we have to wrap it up. Maybe because Mario has a question, there's also a question of where will you share the Miro link, because people are very impressed about the what you have shared. Maybe you can address them in the community so that people can have the time to. Are you going to copy it?
I'm just thinking I can just copy it now.
That's nice. Yeah. So if you can put that in the chat, that would be really nice for a lot of people. Thanks again, Narjeet and Gaurav, for the great presentation. Very impressive. And thank you for your time, for your energy. And we are all looking out for this ebook, which you were mentioning. With I think that will be also full with a lot of nice information.
I think it's still in the phase of building it, so I'm sure it'll take another 3-4 months to come in. But we're quite excited to bring all these problems openly and help people.
Maybe if you present the ebook, if you're finished, maybe you could present it at a new session here at Innovator.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
So, everybody, you can go and prepare for the next session, which will start in just 8 minutes from now. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. See ya.